Welcome to the show, a baseball podcast by the New York Post. This is Jon Heyman. We're missing Joel Sherman this week. Unfortunately, Joel is on a rare vacation. I think he takes one once every decade or so. So you will be stuck with me. I will be hosting. Co-hosting with me will be the New York radio legend, Joe Benigno. I'm very excited about that. I had a spot on his show weekly for about 7 or 8 years, and it was fantastic. He is a very enthusiastic Mets and Jets fan, if you don't know, and should be very, very exciting. And we will both be interviewing another legend, Bobby Valentine, the former manager of the New York Mets, now hosting pre- and post-game for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So this should be a great show. He's an expert, by the way, in Japanese baseball, so we can ask him all about Shohei and Yamamoto and where he's going and what he thinks will happen there. I am really looking forward to this. I miss Joel, but we're going to have to try to do it without him. I am so pleased to welcome Joe Benigno to the show. This is a great privilege and a pleasure. I was on Joe's show when he was with Evan at WFAN for, 7 or 8 years.
Long time.
And my wife said it brought personality to me. I was kind of a dud before that, apparently. So that worked out great. We had a great spot weekly. Now, Joe, you can hear him on WFAN still on Saturdays, 10 to 2. And he's got that great podcast, which I listen to weekly, Oh the Pain, which is a lot about his Jets, some about the Mets. I think there's more pain associated with the Jets, and I think we're in Jets season right now.
Well, there's a lot of pain. Let's explain something here right now. I am more aggravated with the baseball team right now than the football team.
Wow.
I really am. I am.
Well,
because you want to know why? Because
the Jets had a good week, so I think you're off their case for a week. But
the Jets had a good week. Yeah,
they had a good week. But the Mets are, they're in the middle of the winter here. They're improving their team. They got Severino.
Hold on. What? You said they what? Because they signed Luis Severino, the team's improved. What? Ronnie Mauricio's done for the year. Okay, that's great. Okay, let's start with that. You got this guy. You brought this GM in, this guy Stearns. I mean, believe me, I am not happy with him. Here's what the Mets did. See, they're pulling the wool over a Met fan's eyes a little bit. So what's happening here, they brought in this guy Stearns, who's a small market GM. Let's be honest. He's a small market general manager. And they brought him in to run the Mets like the Milwaukee Brewers. How is it possible that the Mets were not even in talking to Ohtani? How is that possible? How is it? And what are they signing anybody? No, everything's going to be internally. Okay, great. Are they going to sign Yamamoto? The longer it goes, the more I think he's going to wind up with the Yankees, maybe the Dodgers, because the Dodgers need him. I mean, I'm disgusted with the Mets. No, I am.
Well, just to put in a couple of comments here about David Stearns, he did go to Harvard, which I know you really apprappreciate.
Oh, that's great. That makes me feel good.
I will say this.
You don't want to get me going on Harvard, do you?
No, I know.
Continue.
He made the playoffs 4 years in a row in Milwaukee, which is not easy. You know the Mets, I'm sure you know this, the Mets have never made the playoffs 4 years in a row.
So they've only made it 2 years in a row a few times. That's it.
Right. So, he has a very good track record. I know Milwaukee's not the market that New York is, but he's got a very good track record. I think with Ohtani, I don't think he really wanted to come to New York. And beyond that, Steve Cohen's already in the Steve Cohen tax bracket, which is 110% now. So if you sign him for $60 million a year, now I guess it was $70 million a year, it's another $80 million in tax. It's $150 million a year for one player. Now you can understand that. I mean, you know about money, so I think that's a bit of a stretch, don't you?
Well, I mean, can we talk to the guy? A bit of a stretch. All we heard, okay. So all the years we had the Wilpons, right? All we did was kill the Wilpons, Freddie coupons, all it is. They're cheaper than cheap. Okay. So now we get this guy. Everybody's delirious. Uncle Stevie, he's got his hedge funds. He's got his artwork, all it is. We're all delirious about Steve Cohen. Well, what has he done? Nothing. We had a 101-win team. He completely destroys it the next year. Let's be honest about it. Couldn't wait to get rid of Verlander and Scherzer so he could cut his losses. He's more worried about putting Ferris wheels in casinos next to Citi Field than he is about his team winning a championship. They're not going to be a contender this year. Who's kidding who? Let's be serious.
Well, I would look at it this way. He gave it a shot with Verlander and Scherzer, gave them
Okay.
$43 million a year, which is
And couldn't wait to cut bait with him.
right. Well, I think that was the right decision, though. They weren't going anywhere last year for whatever.
But how do we know that? You say that. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. Scherzer, I had no problem with getting rid of him. They should have never traded Verlander. They should have never. And the way it played out in the National League, look, I'm not saying they would have made the playoffs, but they might have at least been in the mix and give us meaningful baseball instead of dumping on the fans for the second half of the year. And I'm going to tell you this too. They better sign Alonso because I'm scared about that. Oh, I'm worried about that.
I would be worried about that.
I am worried about
I think they were thinking about the Freddie Freeman deal and the Goldschmidt deal, and those deals were in the hundreds. I mean, I think Alonso's going to shoot.
Fine. This is what are we? The Wilpot's back? Where Jeff Wilpot all of a sudden showed up? He's taking over now? Come on. How do you not sign Pete Alonso? You know what? Because that's David Stearns. He's a small market guy. And the more I think about it, Cohen brought him in to kind of cover his rear end, okay? So Stearns could run it like a small market team while Stevie was, a little queasy about spending any more money. I'm worried about it. The Met fans are getting screwed here, John. Let's be honest about it.
Well, I think they've said they're going to be competitive this year, which we know what that means. That's the same as the Wilpon meaningful games in September, right? So we think they're going to be okay this year, but shooting
John,
for 2025.
Why do I think the Mets are going to be competitive? Well, why?
Well,
is Acuna's brother going to turn into Acuna? Ronald Acuna?
No.
Is this guy Gilbert? Are we going to see these guys? Gilbert, this guy they got for Verlander, is he going to play this year? Already, we don't have Mauricio, who I thought was the best of all the young guys, even better than Alvarez. He's done for the year. I mean, come on. What's our pitching staff right now? If we don't get Yamamoto, what do we got? We got Senga, Quintana, and Severino. This is our pitching staff. Come on.
Well, they're still working, and perhaps they'll get Yamamoto.
Right.
I mean, I would agree with you. I think the Yankees and the Dodgers are probably the favorites for Yamamoto as we speak. I mean, it does feel like he wants to be on the big stage, and those are the two biggest stages still. I mean, I think eventually Cohen would like the Mets to be considered that kind of big stage, but for now, they're probably not. So they do have a good team, though. They have Alonso, they have Lindor, Nimmo. I can't figure. Why do you think they bombed last year? Why were they so bad? Because these are very good players. And last year they had Scherzer and Verlander. So they are taking a step back as we speak. But I think their team was a lot better than the record last year.
Yeah, well, I think they got off to a bad start. I think that certainly was the case. Scherzer and Verlander did not pitch great to start the year. Verlander was hurt, in the beginning of the season. They didn't have Edwin. Let's not discount the fact they didn't have Edwin Diaz, the best closer in baseball. I think there were a lot of things that worked why they didn't play well early in the year. And that's why, it's a 162-game season. I was not happy that they punted on the season. I got to tell you, I was not happy about it.
Okay, I think it was the right decision, but we'll wrap up the Mets here and go on to the Jets for a second. But what would be your prediction for the season? What are we looking at? I think they won the mid-70s last year. They had that gift win from the Marlins at the end of the year where they really didn't win that game and got up to, 75 or something like that. But what do you think? Can they have a winning record this year?
Maybe. I don't know. I think if everything goes right, they will. But I'm not confident. I go into this season with very little confidence that the Mets are going to be a good team. And I'm very scared they're going to let Alonso go. And I could see this happening too, okay? I could see it. David Stearns, I love the guy. I could see this happening, okay? They playing like garbage. They're a bad team. Trading deadline. Oh, let's trade Pete for a couple. Let's trade Pete for Steve Henderson, Pat Zachary, Dan Norman, and Doug Flynn. Okay?
Whoa, good memory.
Okay,
wow.
Good memory. I got hemorrhoids. What do you mean good memory? I can't even sit down from the Seaver trade.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't rule that out at this point, right? If they're not in the race again.
Yeah, and how bad is that? How do you sell that to the fans that you're going to get rid of a guy who hits in a bad year? You had a bad year last year. Hit 46 homers and 119 RBIs, but let's get rid of him. His WAR is low. Get him out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know how you replace somebody who hit 46 home runs.
Tell me about it.
Even if he hits 220, which normally it's around 250.
John, you better sign this guy. I'm telling you.
Okay, can't disagree. They're going to start the season with him, as they've said. but I'm with you. Do need to sign him. Now let's get on to your Jets.
Yes.
How can you be happy with them? Aren't they like 5-8? Aren't they out of
They're
it? They
5
don't
and
have
8.
a
I'm not happy.
quarterback.
Well, nobody said I was happy.
You said you're happier with them. That's
Well, I'm not as aggravated with them. Okay. Look, the injury to Rodgers, the first, this could only one franchise in football could this happen to. Okay. The Jets, the word bad karma is the Jets. You all the insanity in the offseason, Rodgers, hard knocks, this, that. 4 plays into the year, he's done for the year. What other team could this happen to? And the biggest mistake, okay, that was made by this franchise, Joe Douglas, the biggest mistake he made, and to me it's not even debatable. He did not have a legitimate veteran backup as soon as Rodgers got hurt. And they said, okay, we're just going to let Zach Wilson be the guy. I mean, that's malpractice. That's malpractice. That's what that is.
I got to admit, I was a Jet fan back when they won the Super Bowl
Right.
in 1969, and I abandoned them. So I actually admire you for sticking with them. I abandoned them probably 40 years ago or so, probably back when I was in college. How do you do it? Can you think about switching over to somebody else? Never.
No, come on. I mean, come on. There's no switching. I'm 70 years old. I'm going to switch my teams. I've been a Met fan since day one, since 1962. I've seen it all. I've been a Jet fan since Joe Namath's rookie year in 1965. You think I'm leaving these teams? Come on. Now, they've given me more aggravation than anything else. I mean, the Jets haven't even been to the Super Bowl in 55 years. The Mets haven't won a World Series in 37 years. But these are my teams. Are you kidding me?
Well, you'd have to change the name.
I will go to my grave rooting for my teams, and I will be still rooting for my teams when guys like David Stearns and guys like Joe Douglas are long gone from those franchises.
Well,
if I'm alive.
Well, we wish you the best of health. We hope you hang in there for another 55 years with the Jets.
My teams are beating me up, John. I can tell you that.
Well, what do you think's going to happen? Is Rodgers going to play next year as a 41-year-old with a bad foot and
he better.
Other problems? Okay, and what about the coach? Are they keeping the coach?
The coach,
I know you like the coach, right?
Look, the coach has not had a look. He's 16-31 as a coach of his team, but he's coming back because they're all gonna get 1 year with Rodgers. Okay. And if they don't, to me, if they don't make the playoffs next year, everybody's gone. It's time for a new regime again.
All right. Well, you're a loyal man. I have to give you credit for sticking with it. I guess I'm a bandwagon jumper. I jumped off.
You know what, John?
1980.
Let me just say this. I have an emotional attachment, emotional investment in these teams, and where are you going to, I mean, if they win, they finally win. If the Jets finally won a Super Bowl again, well, thank God I saw the first one. I was 15 years old. If the Jets won a Super Bowl again, I can't imagine what that would be like. I can't imagine what it would feel like to forget even winning the Super Bowl, just have that moment when I know I'm going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be beyond, off the charts. Same thing with the Mets. It's been 37 years now, 1986.
Man,
I mean,
has it?
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah,
Brutal.
the Jets seems like a lifetime ago. Of course, I was 8 years old, and I remember in second grade, my show and tell was the next morning on I think it was a George Sauer catch or something like that. I was 8, so
the great.
But I can't imagine the
Underrated
pain
great.
you've been with. If you do switch teams, you'd have to change the name of your podcast from All the Pain. So I don't think that's happening. So let's get on.
Look, when you hit a certain age, John, you don't switch teams. I would say 12 years old is the cutoff. At that
You're
point,
right.
At that point, if you're switching teams, you're a fraud. You're not a fan.
Okay, well, I'm a fraud because I was in college when I got rid of the Jets. All right, let's go on to the Hall of Fame. That's one of our favorite subjects. We've been on the Albert Bell. There you go. Is that Albert?
That is Albert. Great Albert Bell, one of the great right-hand hitters of the generation. An absolute hose job that Albert Bell is not in the Hall of Fame. And he's not in the Hall of Fame because guys like you, and I love you, John, because he didn't talk to you guys. That's really the only reason. Let's be honest. Let's be honest about this, too. He got absolutely hosed, not winning the American League MVP in 1995 when he became the only player ever to hit 50 homers and have 50 doubles in the same year. on a team that won 100 games out of 144 in that shortened season, and they of course won the pennant, and they gave the MVP to Mo Vaughn. What a disgrace.
Well, I think you might be the only Albert Bell fan on the planet. Is that dog talk, or is it kind of like Albert?
Albert Bell, I actually have had Albert Bell on my podcast.
Well, I would think.
He is a very engaging guy, very intelligent guy. And yeah, I mean, I'm a big Albert Bell fan, big time.
I know that, and the reason I didn't vote for Albert Bell, of course, is because his numbers are not big enough. He only played 12 years due to injury, and I just didn't think he made enough of an impact. Hall of Fame is only for the top 1%, so I'm small.
Come on, now let's be honest.
He should have won that MVP. I'm with you on that. He should have won that MVP. We blew that one. I agree.
Slightly. Let me say this, John. This nonsense that only the top 1% is in the Hall of Fame is nonsense. I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, first of all, until the day comes that Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, guys like this, Mark McGwire, until that day comes that these guys are in the Hall of Fame, to me, it's a joke. Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame. It's a joke. I'm sorry. So you could give me Craig Biggio, and you could give me Mike Messina, and you could give me Burt Blyleven and all these guys. It pales in comparison to the guys I just named. Let's be honest.
I will point out that most of those guys cheated. I do support Pete Rose. I do think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. I think that is a disgrace. I'm with you on that. Let's go over this year's ballot a little bit.
Let me get my ballot.
Unfortunately, you get a ballot?
You sent it to me. No,
I sent it to you, but you don't get a vote.
Hold on. You think they're letting me vote for the Hall of Fame? You think the baseball writers are letting me? Outside of you, John, outside of you, I don't think the baseball writers are too fond of me. I can tell you that.
Well, I would let you vote because I think you know. I mean, look what you know. You know more than almost anybody. So let's go over this ballot a little bit. I won't hit on every guy. We'll skip one or two like middle relievers or something like that. Quickly on these guys. Bobby Abreu, what do you think?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I didn't see the impact there. Carlos Beltran. Now, you're a Met fan.
Let me say this about Beltran, okay? When he was with the Mets, I was never the biggest fan of Beltran, okay? But the fact that he got so hosed with this Houston nonsense, okay? Let's be honest. Everybody else has gotten away with it. Everybody else is okay except Beltran. He got screwed. He should have been the manager of the Mets. Let's be honest about that. And the fact that Beltran has been so hosed, I am all for Beltran now going to the Hall of Fame.
Okay, I withheld his vote the first year due to the Houston crapola that you mentioned, but I will vote for him from now on. I do think he is a Hall of Famer.
Good. I'm glad.
Quickly on Beltran, you think Beltran's a Hall of Famer, right?
Well, you know what? I mean, I guess he is because he's got all these big numbers and everybody gets nuts about it. But I mean, is he really? I don't know. But I guess he'll get in.
He's got a 93 WAR. I know you follow the WAR religiously.
Hey, WAR, what is it? Like Edwin Starr once said, WAR, what is it good for?
I like the Edwin Starr reference. We're going back to about 1970 on that one. Todd Helton, what do you think?
I wouldn't vote for him. I think he's a product of Colorado, but I think he's got a good chance to get in.
Me too. I agree with you on that 100%. Let's go to David Wright. What do you think on David Wright?
Unfortunately, as much as I love him, no.
Yeah, I'm
didn't do it long enough. I feel bad. Didn't do it long enough, John.
Yeah, a couple more years, you have a good case. Andrew Jones.
Yeah, I think Andrew Jones is. I mean, I think he's one of the. You could make a case the greatest defensive center fielder of all time. I guess Willie Mays and Griffey Jr. might have something to say about that. But he was a tremendous defensive outfielder. He hit almost 500 home runs in his career. He had a 50-plus home run a season one year. Played on all those terrific Brave teams. I would say yes to Andrew Jones.
I'm with you on that too. We're agreeing a lot, except for on Albert Bell, which we'll never agree. Joe Mauer, Hall of Famer.
You know what? Joe Mauer was kind of played in obscurity in Minnesota, and to me, I think that hurts him a little bit. But I know he's got some big numbers, for a guy that was a catcher. I think he's a lifetime over 300 hitter. So even though I probably am not a big fan of Joe Mauer, he probably gets in.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to support Joe Mauer. Jose Reyes on the ballot. So
no, I love Jose Reyes, but he's not a Hall of Fame.
Okay. Alex Rodriguez, I don't need to ask. We know that you think he's a Hall of Famer.
Who's this? Who'd you say?
Alex Rodriguez.
Oh, of course. He's one of the
Yes.
great players of all time. Of course he is.
Right. Jimmy Rollins?
No, Jimmy Rollins.
Okay.
No.
All right. I support him. Utley,
Okay.
he's in that same category with
Oh
Rollins.
man, I
Oh,
can't
I
stand
shouldn't have
Utley.
mentioned it, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, Utley, you talk about cheap shots. You know, look, he played on those terrific Phillies teams. He was a very good player. Maybe he gets in, but I would have a very difficult time voting for Chase Utley.
All right. Last one, I'm going to ask you, Billy Wagner.
No, I don't. Everybody loves Billy. What was so great about Billy? Well, I'm watching Billy Wagner basically blow the Cardinal playoff series in 2006. You think I'm voting for Billy Wagner? You want me to tell you the 7 guys? Could I give you the 7 guys I put down here?
You can give me 7. I actually am with you on Billy Wagner, not everybody. So we agree on almost everybody except Albert Bell. But go ahead. Who are your guys?
Okay, here's the guys I checked the box on: Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, Andy Pettitte, who I think is a Hall of Famer. If
Okay.
you're gonna have Mike Messina in, Andy Pettitte's got to be in.
All right,
Obviously,
fair.
you know how I feel about Manny Ramirez and A-Rod. Gary Sheffield, I think, is a Hall of Famer, 500 home runs, great hitter. And how about this guy? I mean, Ozzie Smith gets in the Hall of Fame, arguably the greatest defensive shortstop of all time. Omar Vizquel's not too far away from that. How is that guy not? To me, he's a Hall of Famer, Omar Vizquel.
I have not supported him. You're obviously a big Cleveland Indians fan. Now they are the Guardians, as we know. But
Well, they should be the Indians, but that's another story.
Well, next time you're on, we'll get into that. Anyway, Bobby Valentine is here, and
Is he?
he'll be on in a second. We'll be talking
Good.
to him. Former Mets manager, expert in Japanese baseball. Good timing because obviously the Ohtani signing just went down. We have Yamamoto to go, and we both know him very, very well. My favorite manager to cover. I did like Buck. I did like Joe Torre, but Bobby was the best. So Joe Benigno and I will be on with Bobby Valentine if you stick with us on the show. Okay, we are so pleased to be joined by Bobby Valentine, the former manager of the New York Mets, the Texas Rangers, the Chiba Latte Marines, won a championship with Chiba Latte, got to the World Series in 2000, the Subway World Series, with a team that really had no business getting to the World Series. So one of the best managers, I think, over the last 25, 30 years, and the best to cover for sure. I know that much. And an expert in Japanese baseball who is now the announcer post-game and pre-game for I was going to say California Angels. I covered the Angels in the 80s, and they were the California Angels, but I think they're the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim now. So long title, pre and post-game. Bobby Valentine, welcome in. Joe Benigno has stayed on very nicely for us. A terrific, you know him as the radio legend, as you were the Mets manager, and he was at a great show, and he still has a great show. So let's get started interviewing Bobby. Obviously, the Ohtani situation has got to be a little bit upsetting to the Angels. Did you feel like the Angels had any chance to keep him? And were you surprised by the contract, the decision, or anything else that happened with Ohtani in the last week?
I wasn't surprised by the contract. There's no doubt he was going to break all the records, and Nez was out to do that. He wasn't necessarily, but he was going to break all the records. And that he stayed in Southern California doesn't surprise me either, because he's a genius. He doesn't like to move around. He doesn't like change, and this is as little change as possible.
Bobby, I'm very upset that, and I understand that Ohtani probably was not coming to New York, probably not coming to the Mets, but I'm very upset. All the years we had the Wilpons, okay? Everybody can criticize the Wilpons. They're cheap, they're this, they're that. Now we got this guy with all this money, Uncle Stevie, oh, baby, hedge funds, art, all of this nonsense, okay? How did this guy not even talk to us? They didn't even talk to Ohtani. How is that possible?
No, I think he ruled out New York. I don't think, that the idea of being on another coast really excited him. And I think it really, got a little in the Midwest. It got intriguing there because of the travel time. So he wasn't going to do that. And I'm sure the agent used it a little, but not so much because the price was big. And like I said, in the middle of the country where travel would be half, I think that was a little intriguing, only because he's that guy. He wants to do great every day out. That's all he's concerned with. And obviously the money was big, but it wasn't about the money. I think now with Yamamoto, I think it's a little more about the money. And I think Uncle Stevie will be in play there.
Mm.
Just one more thing on Ohtani. You've been around the team a couple years. Just want to kind of get your observations, and also wonder, I know that the time, I think some of the reason, it might have been better in Toronto in a way because it's, the games are 3 hours earlier, but for Japan, the games started at 8 a.m. in Japan when you're in California, whereas it would be 5 if you're in the East Coast. So maybe it was better for that. But what were your observations about Ohtani in the clubhouse, around the players? What's he like?
Well, I liked everything about him. His routine is not like anybody else's in the world. He wakes up in the morning and he basically starts to prepare mentally and physically. When he gets to the clubhouse, which is really early, he starts to work. He does weight training, he does balance training, he does throwing training, swinging training. He watches video. The guys loved him when the game started and didn't understand them the other time because he was doing things that all day long that guys just couldn't believe. He's different, really different.
Yeah, obviously different. No doubt. Now, do you see him pitching again next year, Bob? I mean, obviously he's not going to pitch this year, but I mean, next year, do you see him back on the mound again or no?
Yeah, if it was 2074 when Tommy John coincidentally was just getting the first Tommy John surgery. Imagine how that happened. I question it, but this is well into that procedure. And from everything I gather, if you just do the rehab, if you do the work, everything's fine. Well, he'll do the work. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Well, you are an expert in Japanese baseball, and you give a hint on what your thoughts on Yamamoto are. I know that Joe's rooting for the Mets. It does feel like the Yankees and the Dodgers are the favorites, but maybe we're just assuming something. Where do you think he lands, and what is he looking to do?
Well, I don't think he'll be with the Dodgers. I think Ohtani will rule that roost, and probably might have even mentioned something. They played together on the WBC. But I'm not sure that they're best friends. This is a smaller guy. You got to understand what you're looking at with Yamamoto. Tom Gorman and guys of slight stature. Strawman, who's out there. They've played this game and played it at a high level by throwing high fastballs and breaking balls. This guy works up and down. He has a great split, a curveball, a rising, as they say, fastball, one that has great spin rate. And he's an animal out on the mound. He never wants to give up the ball. He doesn't mind. He doesn't care what inning it is and how many pitches he's thrown. He wants to be out there to do the best that he can. But when you look at him, you kind of frown a little because he is slight in stature. Ohtani's a big guy. He's 225, 235, whatever it is. He's at 6'4". This guy's eyeball to eyeball with me. So he's not the guy that you think of until the ball comes out of his hand. And he's won championships. He's pitched into extra innings. He's thrown 135 pitches on a more than kind of regular basis. Now he has to adjust, of course, adjust to the food, adjust to the people, adjust to the team, adjust to the league, adjust. And I'm not sure that he is that guy because I don't know him that well. But I think he's very prepared to do this. He's wanted to do it a long time. He's a young, determined guy, and whoever gets him is going to be happy.
All right, Bobby. So, the Mets got Senga last year, and as far as I'm concerned, Senga turned out to be a lot better than I thought he was going to be. You're talking about the size of Yamamoto. Senga's not exactly the biggest guy either. And, he's a terrific pitcher. I mean, turned out to be terrific for the Mets. There's no doubt about it. How much better in your mind is Yamamoto than Senga? How about that?
Well, again, I wasn't there during their professional seasons, and I've heard a lot of things. You know, Joe, Masato Yoshii was the WBC pitching coach. You, as a Met fan, remember Yoshii,
of course.
and he's now the manager of the Trib.al Marines. So he was
Played
in the
for you,
same.
Bobby.
He played in New York for me, and he played for me in Japan. As a matter of fact, Shinjo's also a manager. He played in New York, and also
Shinjo.
and my third baseman from my championship teams is a manager in Japan. So three of the guys that played for the Trib.al Marines or the Mets are managing there, and I've talked to all of them about all of these guys, and they think he's a little level up from Senga. He's
Right.
you know, maybe one more pitch, maybe one level of command up, and that's a pretty good pitcher when you think about it. Because I mean, Senga went out there all year last year and did what he needed to do to have the team be a championship team. Just everybody else didn't cooperate, huh? So
Got
he's
that
good.
right.
You know, he's good, and he's going to get over $300 million, and people are going to go, wow, that's a lot of money. Well, it's somebody else's money, so I guess it's not a lot.
Senga was terrific. I want to ask you, do you think the Angels did the right thing? I didn't criticize at the time when they, did not trade Ohtani, went for it. Obviously, the guys that they got, they either got hurt or didn't perform for whatever reason. I thought they might as well give it a shot. Certainly could help their chances with Ohtani. And, at that point, they were only 3 games out. So I can't be one to jump on them. What do you think about their decision and how do they look going forward? I like Neto and I like Ohapi. I think they have some pieces there.
Yeah, they definitely had pieces, and 3 or 4 more pieces would put them right in the driver's seat, and those pieces would have come if, in fact, he was traded. But in the last minute, I think the team was thinking about trading him. As you know, John, I'm rather close to the general manager. His dad is one of my best friends forever. Which is interesting. His dad was my first clubhouse guy in 1968 with Tom Lasorda. And then he became the clubhouse manager in Texas. Perry Manassian, Zach Manassian's son, is the general manager here. And I watched him grow up in baseball. He was a bat boy for Nolan Ryan's 6th no-hitter. He was 9 years old. And he was sitting next to Nolan during the entire game, kind of telling him who was coming up next. So he's done the baseball thing, and he was ready to make a blockbuster trade. I mean, there were a lot of teams that were interested, giving good players, and the kind of last second, Tom Verducci came out with an article saying he's not being traded, and then everything had to get shifted around on the deck of the Titanic, as it turned out, and the trades were all the right trades. They were the right people. It didn't work at the time, and the compensation is not what it could have been.
Bobby, I want to go back to my team. By the way, I wish you were the manager now. I mean, I don't know if it's Carlos Mendoza. Who knows? I mean, he's another push button guy where David Stearns is going to run it. Your question, I'm not happy with this guy Stearns. I got to tell you. To me, he's a small market guy. Okay, so you can tell me he's a Met fan and all this nonsense. He's a small market guy who is used to running a small market team, and I got a bad feeling that he's going to run the Mets small market as well. What's your thoughts?
Well, he's going to have a long time to do it. He's going to make a lot of money while he's trying. But I don't really know David. I know he worked with Perry's brother, Zach Manassian Jr. in Milwaukee for years, and Zach says he's a good guy. He knows everything that he needs to know. But again, it is different, I guess, in New York for a number of reasons, including all the attention that he gets. But I don't think he's going to jump into that spotlight either. It doesn't seem like it. So hopefully, I don't know what a small market team is compared to a big market team, other than one spends a lot and one doesn't spend a lot. Otherwise, you're playing the game out on the field, and he's put together a competitive team in Milwaukee. Obviously, it didn't go very far in the playoffs ever, but that's the luck of the draw also.
Yeah, I'm with Joe. I think he should be managing in the big league still. So,
Mike,
you
you
know,
know, he
too
should be
old for
managing the
that.
Mets. No,
Joe,
not just
like
the
this.
big leagues. He should be managing
yeah,
our
why
team.
not?
Bobby's a
Why
Met.
not? You're a
Bobby, you're a Met,
fantastic
Bobby. Let's
manager.
tell it like it
This,
is.
Yeah,
this,
you
this
had
podcast is what, two old guys and a
three old
TV
guys.
host.
What was that other one? Two old guys and what?
Well, I've been trying to define John real quickly. He does the TV thing. He still writes. He's all
Yes.
over the place. My goodness, huh?
Yeah.
But two old guys and John. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
do a
what
lot
There
of
you go.
things. Not well like Otani, but I do many things. Is such a thing as
Multifaceted, John. You're multifaceted.
versatility, but not greatness. No, we think you should be managing. I mean, one bad year in Boston. I mean, that's it. You're a fantastic manager. You should be managing. So,
John, one terrible year in Boston. That's right. Get that right.
Yeah.
yeah, and you
That was kind
were
of
500
tough,
at
Bobby.
the break, and they made you. Everybody got traded anyway. What about Ron Washington? You're right there. I mean, obviously he's a character. He's different. He did well in Texas. Obviously Manasseh and Perry knew him as well. So what do you think about Ron Washington? Is he going to be able to do well there as well?
Well, I certainly hope so. He's going to get there early. He's going to leave late. He's going to be all about baseball. I think the team needs that all about baseball concept. Joe Madden was here, and there was a little bit of a circus every once in a while. And Phil Nevin, who's a terrific guy, was a rookie manager, and learning his way along. Ron has some stripes, and he talks baseball. He eats baseball. The guys aren't going to get away from it. And in Southern California, there's so many distractions. You need someone to kind of focus the lenses, and hopefully Ron's the guy to do it.
Mm. Bobby, I got to go back to my team because I'm very concerned that the Mets are not going to sign Pete Alonso. No, I got to tell you, no,
I know, Joe.
down.
Hey, Joe, you've been concerned about your team. I've heard this recording. I don't like the ownership. I'm
Bobby.
concerned. What are we doing? What are we going to do, Joe? I'm with you, dude. I've been there, 25 years. I've heard this stuff, Joe. And I know you're concerned. So what's the major concern? What is it?
Okay, well, first
of
all, we haven't won a World Series in 37 years, Bob. I mean, it's
How about
not like
that?
we're lining up championships here. You know what I mean? Okay. With that said, Pete Alonso, I'm worried they're not going to sign this guy. I'm really concerned about it. He's got Boris as his agent now. He's got, guys that hit 46 homers and drive 120 runs in every year. They don't grow on trees. And I don't like, what's happening here. I got a bad feeling about that. What's your thoughts?
Well, they don't grow them on trees, that's for sure. Pete's a spectacular power hitter, and he just performs. I don't know what Scott Boras is asking for. I know I see him every night at the ball game. I have season seats right behind home plate, and he has them right around the corner in the ground suites there. He comes to every game in Anaheim, which is an amazing thing. He's dedicated to the game. But, I wonder if Stevie, has a bad taste in his mouth from the Scherzer deal. I believe that was a Scott Boras 15-minute conversation. Let's give him $130 million. And Pete's got to be north of that. So I'm not sure where they're going with
homegrown
Alonso.
Met, Bobby. The difference is this guy's a homegrown Met, Bobby. Homegrown Met.
That too. I think it's amazing that he isn't locked up, and guys like O'Neill and Nemo are. But maybe they're. I don't know what they're waiting for, and maybe Scott's making them wait.
Well, I'm gonna wrap up here. Happy holidays to both of you. I had one final question for both of you, since I have you both. First of all, Merry Christmas to both you, Bobby and Joe. And since
happy
I have
Hanukkah,
you,
John,
thank
happy
you
Hanukkah.
very much. Thank you.
God bless. God bless.
Appreciate
God
that.
bless
Thank
all
you.
my Jewish friends.
Thank you. My question is, I go to Arthur Avenue. Which is better, Arthur Avenue or Little Italy? And do you have a favorite restaurant? Bobby, you first.
I was just at Enzo's down in Arthur Avenue.
Fantastic.
That's kind of the original Little Italy for me. But Mulberry Street's been hanging on, doing a good job. I don't know about my favorite. Umberto's is down there, and I just love Italian food, and I love New York Italian food. And Joe, New York pizza isn't on the West Coast. No matter what anybody says, the water just doesn't make it happen out here. And I crave the pies from the East Coast.
I'm sure you do. Umberto's, I've always had a connection to Umberto's. My buddy Robert, who runs it down there. And I used to be, when I was doing the overnight years, that was one of the big spots on my show. So I've always had a warm place in my heart for them. And they make the best rice balls there is. Phenomenal.
Fantastic. Thanks for the touts. Really appreciate it. Bobby, we can talk for hours. Thank you so much for joining us. My favorite manager, you still should be managing.
No doubt.
And Joe, thank you again.
By the way, can I just say this to Bobby?
Radio legend.
Bobby, just let me say this one thing. Thank you for the service with the Mets, Bobby. We miss you and we appreciate it.
It was fun for me. And if you really want to hear about some of those stories, Joe, Valentine's Way is a book that's out there. John, I'm making a plug. Good Christmas gift. And I tell all those stories of the Met years.
Good. I got to check that out. I got to check it out, Bob.
I like that. Thank you for your service. It's like you were through a war with the Mets.
Well, it was.
Salute. Great to see both of you guys. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Hey, John.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
I'm going to start the last segment here with my hit or error. We normally do it every week, and unfortunately, Joel's not here, so I get the last word. And I'm going to do a hit. I'm in a very generous mood. It's the Los Angeles Dodgers for their great deal for Shohei Ohtani. The other teams were willing to pay just as much, and they got him. And I thought it was a great move by the Dodgers. They'd cleared out space. They'd not re-signed Seager, Turner, Bellinger. They had the money to do it, and they got it done. It was originally said to be a $700 million deal, but then it was figured for the collective tax to be $460 million, and now the union has figured that about $438 million, and we know that the Guggenheim partners in Chicago will do even better with the money, so the actual value might even be less than $438 million, which I'm saying even less. It's a record contract, good for Ohtani, worked out for him as well, as he gets to play for a winner, a consistent winner, and I think that was really foremost in his mind. That plus the geography, staying in the Southern California area. So Ohtani's a winner, but the Dodgers are my big winner. And that will wrap up the episode of the show, a podcast for the New York Post. We miss Joel Sherman, but we want to thank Joe Benigno, the legendary radio voice in New York at WFAN, and Bobby Valentine, a legend of everything. And right now he is post and pregame with the Angels, and terrific job by both of them. And of course, I want to thank the producers. I couldn't do it without them. Jake Brown and Andrew Hartz. Fantastic job. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and watch the show on the Yes app, which will drop tomorrow at noon. We are off next week, a rare off week, but Joel and I will be back in a couple weeks, a few days after Christmas, with the next episode. And I want to wish everybody happy holidays, happy Hanukkah. It's a couple days to go, and Merry Christmas. That's off in the future, but it's been my pleasure signing off for the Post and the show, Jon Heyman.